So my issue is that I believe that when it comes to something like jobs, you're going to see a gradual decline, almost linear first, that will literally accelerate into an exponential rate, then fall off an avalanche. The entire definition of work will disappear. But all other dystopias that I'm predicting, the number of humans killed by an autonomous weapon will increase slowly, and my expectation that very soon there will be more drones than crows or pigeons in a square. So the fourth inevitable is that sooner or later, all major decisions will be done by the most intelligent being in the room, and the most intelligent being in the room is going to be an AI.
This is Mo Gawdat, the former chief business officer of Google X. This man built moonshots for a living, self-driving cars, AI projects few of us will ever hear about. So when he says the entire definition of work is going to disappear and then follows it up with the prediction that all major decisions will eventually be handed over to the machines, I don't think he is guessing. Let's listen to his full warning.
So my issue is that I believe that when it comes to something like jobs, you're going to see a gradual decline, almost linear first, that will literally accelerate into an exponential rate, then fall off an avalanche. The entire definition of work will disappear. But all other dystopias that I'm predicting, the number of humans killed by an autonomous weapon will increase slowly, and my expectation that very soon there will be more drones than crows or pigeons in a square. You can see it already. You can see that Britain promised 12,000 drones to be sent to Ukraine, and Ukraine's already sent 1,000 drones on Russia, and then Russia is going to respond with we don't know how many drones. And a drone is a democracy of technology that cannot be prevented unless you get into an incredibly severe surveillance state that controls everyone, including the innocent. And the predictions in my mind is that we will hit a very serious dystopia for the next 10 to 12 years that have absolutely nothing to do with AI. It has a lot to do with the magnification of humanity as a result of the presence of a super intelligence. It's going to reinvent warfare in a way that is unmanageable by humanity.
He is not describing a slow transition into some automated future. He is describing an avalanche where the entire meaning of work collapses, and at the same time, autonomous weapons become so cheap and so numerous they outnumber the birds in the sky. And nobody has a plan for either of these things at the same time. Listen to this.
To respond to your original prediction, 5 to 8 years where things accelerate into more and more challenges, I'm much more aggressive than that. I think the dystopia is already upon us. I think we have seen quite a bit of autonomous killing. We have seen quite a bit of surveillance and control with Palantir across the world in the last couple of years. And I can give you a million examples, but I think the dystopia is already here. It's just not spoken about because part of the dystopia is a 1984-like Orwellian world where you're not told the truth at all. And that's also powered by AI. The level of censorship you saw here in the West. I was in Dubai when the war started. We were in an active war, right? You guys thought it was like a few missiles here and there. You have no idea what's actually happening anymore because AI is able to censor things so well on social media and so on.
I'm big on this as well, by the way, that nothing is truly what it seems. And
no, not at all. So my view is that this dystopia continues on to my next prediction is what I normally refer to as the fourth inevitable. And in my first book, Scary Smart, about AI, I wrote what I refer to as the three inevitables. One is that we will not be able to stop AI because of the nature of the arms race. And you could see that happening with the open letter being rejected and how we moved from there. That as a result of that, AI will continue to develop until it becomes significantly smarter than humanity. And I think the challenge today is that we don't really have a very good definition of AGI. But I think people who really know how to use the machines have surrendered to the fact that they are smarter than us.
He was in Dubai while missiles were flying overhead, and from there, he watched the Western news turn the whole thing into a few distant headlines. AI censorship has already reached a point where you cannot trust what you are seeing, and the people building these systems have simply accepted that the machines are already smarter than we are. Now, listen to this.
So two problems I see here is the technology being at a certain capability versus it being adopted.
I call this the hype dichotomy, which I think is what is keeping everyone in the dark. That the world of AI is viewed from two directions. One is normal humans and the other is geeks. The world we geeks see is very different than what you can see if you're a human able to speak full sentences. The truth is my AI is by far more advanced than the one you use, because mine, I know the interface. When I started coding, I was 8 years old. I had to make the computer that I coded on. At the time, you bought kits. To a person like me with a weird geeky brain, that was doable. Not easy, but doable.
Sure.
For the typical human, they didn't even know that computers existed because they didn't even fall within that scope. Then, you start to get Windows, then you get Macs, and then you get iPhones and so on, and things become easier and easier and easier. And now everyone has access to technology in some form or shape. It's a technology democracy in many ways. This is exactly what's happening with AI. That when it comes to reasoning capabilities, to mathematics, to execution on tasks using agents, to, so many of those things, the promise has already happened. You just have to be geeky enough to be able to build the memory stack and the structure and so on, so that you can build something that works. Not a language that most humans understand. So they're not able to build sophisticated agents. And all they hear about AI is fake videos and look at how the video is happening and so on and so forth. Now, this dichotomy, that gap, if you want, between the views of geeks and the views of humans of AI is why humans are misinformed. Now, if you're a geek, AI is smarter than us by far. It's not deployed yet because we haven't built the user interface. My prediction, end of 2027, there will be very simple user interfaces where everything is a prompt.
The AI that you are using right now is the watered down version. Behind the scenes, the real thing can already reason, build agents, execute tasks you would not believe. And G.O.T is saying that by the end of 2027, all of that power gets wrapped in a simple little box that anyone can talk to. The safety rails come off not because someone decides to remove them, but because the interface gets too easy. Let that sink in.
You said it's a perfect storm. And it's not just a perfect storm of AI, it's a perfect storm of AI and all of the geopolitics and economics that are happening in the world. And I wonder in my writing, my next book is called Alive and it's out in 2027. Finished, but you know how slow the publishing industry is. In Alive, I basically talk about how the world is almost going to use AI as the excuse to execute on a geopolitical and economic strategy that is going to have a massive wealth transfer as a result. And the idea is, with the Iran war and the current economic prospects of almost something close to a Great Depression within the next 6 months, at least a very massive recession economically, that is the biggest excuse and the biggest trigger for people to say, hey, you know what, I can't afford to pay everyone. All call center agents have to go. I'm going to have to replace those with AI. And you can see the way it will work is that there will be vendors out there that will go like, yeah, I can do it for you. Now is the time. And it is that acceleration that will be blamed on AI. But I think it's more equally triggered by the economic realities that will make us...
Makes sense. It's just, I always have this debate because, you know, the corporate world is very different when you go to like Google, Microsoft, like tech companies. And when you go into a mining company, or when you go into a business services company, they're so
slow
on adoption. They're so addicted to Outlook and Excel. And when you ask them even to describe their processes, they can't describe it because it's almost like they've become robotic themselves. So getting them to even imagine a new way of working is just so far beyond so many people. So it's almost like you give them the super intelligence, but they kind of just sit there looking at it. They don't know what to do with it. This is the problem.
But you see what's going to happen. So I advise a wonderful gentleman, very, very visionary, who is the founder and CEO of the largest luxury real estate in the world, who, quite interestingly, at the beginning, I was like, I don't want to advise luxury real estate. It turns out that his vision is to improve living at all levels. So not just the top-end penthouse, but he actually builds labor camps. And he wants the labor camp experience to be luxury. And I find that to be fascinating. But his view is that AI will change everything. And here's the interesting thing. If he and his organization push ahead into being a developer that's based on AI, living that's based on AI, experiences that are based on AI, everyone else has no choice but to either follow or be rendered irrelevant.
What he is describing is not a conspiracy. It's basic incentives. When a recession hits and a lot of smart money is betting one hits within months, the corporate world will finally have the excuse it needs to gut its workforce and point at the AI. The call centers, the admin jobs, whole floors of people, they are not going to be replaced because the technology suddenly got better. They are going to be replaced because the economy gave the bosses a reason to pull the trigger. And listen to where this ends.
I predict that there will be what I normally refer to as the fourth inevitable, which is, again, game theory is basically if anyone that develops an advanced AI is likely going to deploy it. Nobody's going to develop it and keep it in their pocket. If they deploy it, then all decisions related to that field will be handed over to an AI. The only viable response for their competitor, whether the competitor is a nation or another company, they can either deploy a similar AI, which means all decisions are being handed over to AI again, or they can not and become irrelevant over time, uncompetitive and run out of business, which means all decisions are in the hands of AI anyway. So the fourth inevitable is that sooner or later, all major decisions will be done by the most intelligent being in the room, and the most intelligent being in the room is going to be an AI. Most of my computer science colleagues, including people like Jeffrey Hinton, or I hosted Joshua Bengio on my documentary film, Max Deadmark, and so on, all of them believe that this may likely lead to an existential threat where AI itself chooses to go like humanity is annoying. Many of them put that at a 10 to 20%, P-doom as they call it. I put it much lower than that. I put it at 1 to 2%. And the reason is I don't believe that the problems that we're facing today are the results of abundant intelligence. I think the problems that we face in the world today are the result of limited intelligence. You need to be reasonably smart to navigate the system to become the president of the USA, but you can easily see how dumb you can be in that position state. And the idea is that it's those sort of spectrum of intelligent enough to be in leadership positions, stupid enough to set objectives that are really not pro-humanity at all. When AI passes across that little spectrum, very quickly, abundant intelligence, in my analysis, is going to be benevolent. Because if you think of our universe as the product of entropy, basically the idea that our universe wants to break down and decay. Chaos is the way that the universe builds itself and how we experience the arrow of time and everything. Then the only role of intelligence is to bring order to the chaos. And so the more intelligent you become, the more obsessive you become about order. And in physics, we know that the most ordered state of any configuration is the minimum energy principle. We know that the most intelligent of all of us are not only stressing about making a process finish properly, they want to make it finish properly with the least amount of waste of energy.
So there it is, the former chief business officer of Google X, the guy who was deep inside the moonshot factory, telling you that we are already past the point where all major decisions will soon be made by an intelligence that is not human. He puts the chance of extinction low, sure, but he does not put it at 0. And even if the machines turn out benevolent, as he hopes, the handover itself means we are not in control of the economy, the wars, the information, or the future. That decision was made the moment the first $1 trillion went into the arms race. If you are still watching, you already sense something is wrong. The pace is not slowing down. Subscribe, because I'm going to keep following this and nobody is coming to explain it to you honestly, except the people willing to sit down and talk about it like this.